Hello, welcome to Daniel Bayon's Views of Wrestling. Hold on for a second. I didn't want to interrupt that audio, so that's why I was quiet for 11 seconds. I was talking to my brother because I thought I needed somebody to produce my podcast for me, so I asked him, "Do you know how to produce?" And I asked him to be my producer, but he said all I need to do is decide how many shows or episodes to have during the week. So that's when I thought about it last night, and then today I realized actually I realized when I thought about talking about the Ric Flair Collection DVD, I made the mistake of not waiting on it until a day where there is no WWE on. So I will continue talking about the Ric Flair Collection DVD, and I'll especially do a breakdown of the matches. And the weekly topic that I wanted to talk about was Monday Night Raw, and I was doing a breakdown of Raw vs. Nitro on Patreon, but because not people don't know me like they know Tony Schiavone or Eric Bischoff, I actually had stopped that because I didn't think anybody would listen to it. But I will start doing that here. I just want to share with y'all that would be like the weekend. No, I'm sorry. If I'm up early enough on Friday, I will do a breakdown of the first match that Ric Flair chose for his first DVD, which was the first ever Starrcade, and as I think about it, I'm not trying to flip-flop here, but I just realized I don't have to wait that long. I can do that now. I haven't listened to the full episode of Water Rush podcast with Animal talking about pay-per-view when he and Hawk went against Billy Gunn and Road Dogg Jesse James, so I don't exactly know. How they do it, but I didn't want any background playing. I don't want any noise playing in the background. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna talk about the match as it happens, because it's fun for me to do. I believe the referee in this match was Starrcade 83. And by the way, let me do a little background information about this. in those days, because it was believed to be a sport and not entertainment, I don't think they started really pulling back the curtain until after Ted Turner bought the Crockett promotion. So because it was believed to be real, Ric Flair came from the right side of the building and Harley Race came through the left, because the hills would, in those days, would always have to be brought to the left side of the arena, and the baby faces would always stay on the right side of the arena. So Harley Race came to the audience with the actual police officers and the referee to get to the cage. And Ric Flair came through, I guess we call it the entrance way of the arena, to get to the ring. And Harley Race was wearing a red and blue jacket, and Ric Flair was already in the cage, was wearing a diamond-studded robe, and it was green. This was like his first ever robe that was ever made for him, I believe. No, let me restate that. Back in 1981, he had a beautiful orange robe, I think, or a green robe with orange fur at the top. And I believe the most popular robes he had were rhinestone robes, and they were worth $1,500, which is why he was able to afford them, because they had an insurance policy. And I tried to explain this to my mom, but I don't think she understood that the purpose of that was to be able to replace the title if they lost it. They had a $25,000 insurance policy on the title, and I believe even right here they had a policy, and I believe because of that, and because of all the money he drew for the company at the time, that's why he was able to afford that much money to make robes, or to have people make robes for him in those days. I believe the referee was a wrestling great known as Gene Kiniski, and I think his son was in Mid-South here in Louisiana as a master wrestler. But this is Gene Kiniski, and he was a special guest referee, and because he was a special guest referee, and because of being a wrestling great himself, he was checking to make sure the turnbuckles were tight enough so nobody would hurt themselves. We know now that's what it was for, but at the time, they didn't mention that because it would have been too easy to see at the show. Ric Flair naturally is from Charlotte, North Carolina, and Harley Race from Kansas City, Missouri. And I know that most of the time people do these watch-along when they are talking about matches or pay-per-views. I know most of the time they talk about them in the history, in the in the actual anniversary. But I want it to be as different as I could, so that's why I'm doing this 17 days early, because I didn't really want to do a history. I didn't want to do an anniversary special. I just wanted to make this a part of my podcast so that I could see how y'all like it. And this is in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I'm trying to remember the real history of Greensboro is big time, but so is St. Louis, Missouri. And what I'm trying to remember is really the stories I had heard. Stories I had heard was that St. Louis, Missouri fans are very passionate about the business. So that's why Harley Race needed 3 cops to escort him to ringside, because Val Serious, they took this match and the storyline. And like any great match and great feud, they were fussing at each other before the match, before the bell even rang. Gene Kiniski separated them, and he started doing the old-fashioned checking for illegal objects. I used to see that all the time growing up, especially if you had a mask on. The only time I ever saw a referee catch anybody was when a referee in WWE was checking Ric Flair, and Ric Flair not accidentally, he made the mistake of hiding a pair of brass knucks in his knee pad. And that's the only time I ever saw anybody get caught. Now, when I was growing up, just one more story and then I'm going to continue this. When I was growing up, Jim Duggan used to take a pair of tape out of his tights, and he would wrap his hand up with it and hit his opponents and in the match. Now, the reason I wouldn't call that a weapon is because it's because of the fact that it doesn't hurt you. It's not like brass knucks or anything like that. As a matter of fact, brass knucks are the only thing I think you can hide or would hide, because every other weapon is too big to hide. So let me just continue on with this match. Flair's the next person checked. The referee goes over the instructions of the match. And I believe what he was saying was that it's against the rules to throw your opponent against the cage. Even though that became popular later on, I don't think the idea was to keep people out of the ring, not for you to use the cage as a weapon. I think that's what he was telling them. The first sequence was a lockup, and Harley Race was against the ropes, so Ric Flair had to break. Clean break, and then Ric Flair lockup again with a side headlock. Takedown on Harley Race. Race had the first pinfall attempt, was a roll-up. Ric Flair kicked out at about the count of 2. Then they break away from each other, so the referee started talking to Ric Flair about not to use clenched fists, and they lock up again. Harley Race with the left hand, and then Ric Flair came back with a chop, and then the elbow over the forehead. Excuse me. See, this time Harley Race gets him in the corner. Oh, okay. Second time he gets Ric Flair in the corner, he has to break before a 5 count, but Harley knee hits the knee into Ric Flair's gut, and Gene Kiniski starts fussing him. He almost got himself disqualified right there by pushing Gene. He tells Ric Flair what not to do again, and lockup this time gets Harley Race in the corner. Hits Harley Race with a knee into his gut and an elbow over his head. A snapmare takedown. I think this is considered a rear chin lock right here on Harley Race by Ric Flair. Ric Flair standing up and Harley Race is on his knees. It's just a regular side headlock right now. See? Into the corner, we might finally we say an Irish whip from Harley Race. High knee from Harley Race into Ric Flair, knocks him down. Flair sets up for Harley Race to miss that headbutt. Standing up, diving headbutt. See what happens next. Flair gets to his feet, helps Harley Race up, then a chop, knocks down Harley Race. Cover hooks the leg. I don't even think he might have gotten a 1 count as Harley Race when kicked out. Then he went back for a side headlock takedown. To break the count, Harley Race put his right shoulder up a couple of times. Let's see. Roll up. Let's see if he even goes for a counter. 1. I think Ric Flair had his shoulder up, so he stopped the count. Then Ric Flair goes back down. Reverses it right back down to side headlock. Or rear chin lock, but this is more like a side headlock right here. On the mat. Let's see. Race had just rolled over on his stomach. Ric Flair released the headlock into a front face lock on Harley Race. Now let's see. I think he's trying to turn Harley Race over for a pinfall. That's exactly what he's doing. Cover. Let's see. 1, 2, but your right shoulder up by the time the 2 count happened. Ric Flair's got such a great, just a great lock on that front face lock of his. Such a great grip on it, strong grip, that Gene couldn't see the shoulder up. It's right back to being front face lock. Ric Flair looks like he's setting up for vertical suplex. Gets to his feet. But it's Harley Race that hits him with a vertical suplex. See what Harley Race goes for next is a cover. 1, kick out at 2. see. Goes for an elbow. Misses the elbow drop to Ric Flair. Okay. I don't know why, but I just looked at the screen to see if you can pause this, because I need to do something in the kitchen. First, let me go through this next sequence. Flair went for a body slam. Harley Race just fell on top of him for a pinfall attempt, and Ric Flair kicks out at 2 with his right shoulder up. Went for that high knee across Ric Flair's face. Now Ric Flair is rolling around trying to see if he can get up. Race comes with a knee drop over Ric Flair's face. Another knee drop. He's holding onto the ropes. I think the referee should be counting him. Instead, I think he's trying to... Yeah, he's getting Harley Race off of him. He's pulling him off by his shoulders now. Let's see. Fussing at Harley Race now. Ric Flair isn't on his feet yet. He's slowly getting up to his feet. Harley Race to him up by grabbing his hair. Head him to the turnbuckle pad. Let's see what happens next. You just hit him with the left hand. And Gene was telling him that not to use clenched fist, but he hit him with another left hand, which of course is clenched. Knee drop, this time over the throat. Ric Flair, it's almost like a chokehold. I think the referee should he pushed him off. Okay. Going for a pile driver to Ric Flair. Gets it. Let's see. Harley gets up this time. Hits the elbow drop on Ric Flair. Cover to left shoulder up this time by Ric Flair. Harley Race is on his knees. I think he might be telling something to Ric Flair. Picking up Ric Flair by his hair. Flair's on his knees now, and Harley Race to his feet. Elbow over his neck, I believe. And after he hit the elbow, Ric Flair started grabbing his head. Maybe it was closer to the head area than the neck. Picks him up and goes for a neck breaker. Gets it. Turns around and he covers him. 1. Kick out before 2 by Ric Flair. And Gene Kiniski showed that he put his shoulder up put his arm up to show that Ric Flair put his shoulder up in here, almost in the corner. Harley Race hitting some knee drops on Ric Flair's shoulder. Actually, it's closer to the clavicle muscle. Referee is starting the count at 10. Referee's moving some things in the corner. I'm not sure what it is. And Harley Race ups him up the neck, and I think he throws him into the cage. Ooh, through the middle rope, head into the cage, forehead into the cage. That's enough to make anybody bleed. Let's see. Yeah, he's bleeding all right. He's picking him up, almost like a power slam. Yeah, power slam to Ric Flair. Turns around, covers him. 1, 2, kick out at 2. Gene shows to Harley Race with his hand how very close the 3 count was, but he still kicked out. Ric Flair hits him with a few right hands in the stomach. Well, let's see. Right hand. This time he's to his head and he's to his feet, excuse me. Harley Race just hit him with a headbutt. This time he gets him with the diving headbutt standing up. It's amazing how he could do that. The way he would hit the diving headbutt from the middle rope, he would do the same thing standing up. I found that very amazing. Normally you jump from the top rope to do the headbutt. Next sequence or spot of the match, he throws Ric Flair into the cage over the top rope this time. Ric Flair comes and kicks him in the gut in the next sequence. Let's see. Goes to throw him again into the cage, gets it. Ooh. Ric Flair just falls down, probably out of exhaustion. Because of how physical this match is. Then Harley Race hits him with the left hand, and he falls down again because he was on his knees by that time. Let's see what happens next. Head into the turnbuckle. Harley Race throws Ric Flair into the corner. Put his head into the turnbuckle to give him an even bigger disadvantage. The referee, Gene Kiniski, pulls him off after counting 2-3 and seeing how he's about to refuse to back off. Ric Flair hits him with the right hand. Now he's facing Ric Flair. Flair comes with a chop and another elbow to the forehead. And kicked him in the stomach. Right hand. Oh, he's being pulled away from Harley. Headbutt by Harley Race. He falls straight down. Knees first, and then the rest of his body goes down with him. What I had always found interesting, by the way, he just threw him into the corner, head against the turnbuckle again. And then an Irish whip, but a reversal by Ric Flair. I think he just hit his head on the steel part of either the ring post or the turnbuckle itself. But what I was going to say is what I always found interesting, because sometimes bleeding happens by accident. So I always wondered when I would see matches like this where people would bleed. I always wondered what they do, and I found out when I went to Church Point. I believe it was 10 years ago or 11 years. No, I'll take it back. Probably 11 years ago. Went to a Church Point show with my dad, and this guy who worked for the indie company. During intermission, he got in the ring and he started mopping up the ring so that it could be clean the next time they do a match. And I realized that's how they do it. They clean it up before they take the ring apart. That's how they do it. He starts talking Harley Race, Gene Kiniski does. And now it's time for Ric Flair to try Harley Race going into the cage. He gets him. Gene told Ric Flair something about that, and Snapmare takedown next by Ric Flair to Harley Race. And it's really important that you see referees do that, where they admonish the wrestlers, especially the baby faces, because a lot of times you see baby faces acting almost like the villain, and they need to remember what they're their role is to play fairly, or they could get disqualified as easily as the villains can. And the next spot Ric Flair does is hitting pile driver to Harley Race. Excuse me, I got a cold. He covered him with hook of the leg, but I don't think, I think the referee couldn't see Harley Race trying to put his foot on the rope, but as I rewound it to make sure I wasn't mistaken, and yes, I was mistaken. Harley Race kicked out all. He didn't have enough space to put his foot on the rope, so he kicked out altogether. Ric Flair turned his head sideways. Still wondering what the point of that is. Besides the fact that I think Bob Orton Jr. did it to him to try to injure him. He went for a butterfly suplex next. Hooks the leg, 2, and he kicks out at 2. Does Harley Race. Then he hits Harley Race with a chop next. See. Head into the cage and he falls down. Dean starts fussing or admonishing Ric Flair for that. I really believe the reason he keeps on fussing is because the cage match is not supposed to be used as a weapon. It's supposed to be used, like I said before, to keep the other guys from getting in. And as time goes on, because I'm going to be talking about the Ric Flair collection, and I will talk about Monday Nitro versus Monday Night Raw, but I will also talk about the episode of Mid-Atlantic that led to this match. The next spot they do is Harley Race, once again using Ric Flair's head against the cage, and the referee pulling him off of Ric Flair, I believe, is the next scene. Yeah. Pulling him off. Gets him into the corner and he starts fussing at him again. This time almost hitting him because he's so upset with him. See. And I think he's going for another shot at throwing him against the cage, and he gets it. And I'm guessing he couldn't really see out of his eyes. So he went for a chop, but the only thing he could get with the right hand, then he got headbutted. The referee is blocking the right hand. He got hit with the right hand by Harley Race, and he kicked Harley Race, chopped him down, cover, 2 count, and then Harley Race kicked out. Well, let's see what he does next. Is that elbow drop of his own, onto Harley Race. I think he's trying. Not going for a cover. He just turned around, got on him so that he could hit him with a few right hands. I don't know why they didn't put this on Ric Flair's DVD, but this was not the last time they faced each other. But that's a story for another time. Flair the next spot Ric Flair did was a belly-to-back suplex. Now you can see in this match how Ric Flair had said a few years ago when he inducted Sting into the Hall of Fame that he is not gifted with defense with the ability to defend himself. So this was probably one of the best matches of his career because of all the things I didn't see him do before I saw this match. Then right here he does the figure four. I think Harley Race might be trying to turn it over like I've seen people, because of how long Ric Flair had been wrestling before he lost a career-threatening match to Shawn Michaels 10 years ago. I had seen this over 1,000 times, probably 5,000 times, because of how popular the figure four leg lock is, period, as a finisher. Harley Race went over to turn it on Flair, then Ric Flair turned it back. It got into the ropes, so now Ric Flair had to break it, or Gene Kiniski broke it for Flair. He even had to hold on to the back of Gene's pockets of his pants to help himself stand up. I think he just got hit with a right hand when Harley Race got up. No, it was a headbutt. Okay. Another headbutt. Flair falls down. Let's see. Last time I looked at the information button, it was 15 minutes left. So let's see. Vertical suplex. Set up a Harley Race, but Ric Flair falls on top of him for pending combination to kick out. I think Gene thought that Harley was trying to knock him out by throwing Ric Flair against him, so he was fussing at Harley Race. Headbutt by Harley Race to Ric Flair. Let's see. Goes up top from the middle rope, He's going for that diving headbutt. This time he makes it. But that took a lot out of Harley also. So now the referee's checking on Ric Flair. And he's about to... No, Harley Race is slowly getting to his feet. Or he's going over for a count. 1, 2, kick out by Ric Flair. And the Race is the first to his feet. Let's see what happens next. A front face lock by Harley Race into a vertical suplex. Okay. Goes for a cover. 1, 2, kick out by Ric Flair. See. And the next spot is an eye rake, a couple of eye rakes to Ric Flair, then a third one. A fourth one, and a fifth one after the referee warns him not to do any more. Let's see. Knee drop. Time to the side of the head of Ric Flair. Don Harley Race's Tyson goes for right hand, but he couldn't get close enough that he gets it with the left hand. He gets hit, thrown into the cage again. This time he falls straight through the middle ropes, and the Race starts pushing his... I guess he's choking him with his foot against his throat, I don't know. But that's what I'm positive of because the referee's grabbing him by his hair to pull him off of Ric Flair. Let's see what happens next. Is from face lock. It's time. Ric Flair blocks the attempt of a vertical suplex into one of his own. Delayed vertical suplex. It's one of his favorite moves. Gets to his feet. Let's see. Goes for that flying elbow drop. He misses it. Running elbow drop and misses it. Side headlock. Ooh, hits the referee with a headbutt. I don't know if that was accidental or on purpose. Flair just tried to take him down. Flair kicked him in the gut. Elbow to the head of Harley Race, then a chop. And a right hand. Goes up top rope, crossbody. The referee turns around. 1, 2, and 3. Ric Flair regains the NWA World Heavyweight title. Oh. Lasted almost 9 more minutes. That's interesting. I believe the rest of this chapter was everybody coming in to congratulate him, including his wife at the time. They showed them, they put the title on him, around his waist for him, and they had put him on one man's shoulders. And then he got down and he was thanking everybody for coming out. And he could not say, he said, "Can't thank you enough." And I think he was almost crying because he cries a lot in real life. And I think by the time they showed all of his friends in the back talking with him with the champagne and everything, by that time they had cleaned him up in the back. No more blood or anything. I believe, yeah, they cleaned him up all right because I saw this on Starrcade, the Starrcade pay-per-view itself. Okay. Okay, I had wanted to continue talking about to WWF fans, Mark Miro, his rivalry in WCW with Diamond Dallas Page for the television title. I wanted to continue talking about that, so I'm going to this Ric Flair collection topic is going to be once a week. I'm going to talk, next time I do an episode, it's going to be, going to talk about the next person that he talks about, and I'm going to play the audio of him talking about his next opponent that he talks about, and then I'm going to mute it, and I'm going to talk about the match that they air. So I guess about Saturday I'll talk about Raw versus Nitro. I'll start that on Saturday. Purpose of this was to talk with people in the chat room. I didn't see anybody send a message, so I'm just gonna stop this right here. Thank y'all and goodbye.